Michigan, you should watch what's going on in Michigan, because what happens in Michigan is going to come into a state near you, whether it's the takeover of your schools, whether it's things like the emergency manager law. We're seeing this now. Gary, Indiana, their schools have been taken over by an emergency manager. New Jersey's got an emergency manager law now, so watch what's going on in states like Michigan particularly, because it's very likely that we're beta testing what you're going to see in your state coming soon. You could point to other states as well, but I really think Michigan has been sort of the beta tester for a lot of what the Republican agenda has been, the conservative agenda. We're not really a red state, but we have more Republicans in Congress than we do Democrats. And our state legislature, we have a supermajority of Republicans in the Senate, and they have the majority in the House. We have a governor who's a Republican. Even everybody from the governor down to the attorney general and below are Republicans. Even our courts are run by, our Supreme Court and our appeals courts are run by Republican appointees. So they've really done a hell of a job of sort of taking what looks like what should be a blue state and making it look red and taking over control of that. So I don't think that Michigan is a blue or red state, but I do think that it's run by Republicans. And so one of the big things that we've got as a challenge for us is to get an independent panel, so that when they redraw those lines every census year, we get a fair shake at this thing, and it's done in a way that's fair and puts everybody in makes our legislative districts more competitive. See, we were gerrymandered heavily in 2000, and then they just sort of went around and fixed everything in 2010 and made us even more gerrymandered. We've got massive corporate takeover of our school systems. We've got the most for-profit charter schools in any other state, and a lot of this is because of people like Betsy DeVos, who have been, investing in this thing for decades. Literally, they've been putting they realized they were going to win elections most of the time themselves. Dick DeVos got clobbered in 2006 by a Democrat named Jennifer Granholm, and so they turned their attention to the legislature and basically purchasing the state legislature, and they've done this really well. So what they couldn't do by getting elected themselves, they're getting other people elected to enact their agenda. And so all the stuff that we're seeing, or we probably will see, as Betsy DeVos sort of rolls out this agenda, this stuff that we've already seen her at least attempt to do in Michigan, in some cases been very successful about it. In 2013, in our lame duck session, Governor Rick Snyder signed right-to-work legislation into law, and so the birthplace of the labor movement became a right-to-work state. And so this, and that during that fight, Dick DeVos and his cohort and his family were on the grounds in Lansing, talking to legislators and threatening Republicans who weren't going along with them with primary challengers. They were going to fund their primary challengers. Mackinac Center for Public Policy, and they are, they're a Koch brothers funded corporatist front group that's out there spewing propaganda to support corporate interests. And so what you see happening, and what the Mackinac Center is doing, is happening in other states as well. They've just really honed it down to a fine art in Michigan. The attacks on labor, and particularly on teachers and public employees, they've been vilified by groups like the Mackinac Center, and they are able to get that message into the media a lot because of how effective they are, and it starts to turn the tide in terms of people's opinions. And so from the progressive side, we've really had to push back against that, everywhere that we can. In terms of what the Mackinac Center is doing, sometimes it's just a matter of revealing who they are. When you see an op-ed in the Detroit News, for example, making sure that we're getting the word out that this is not coming from an independent group. This is coming from a group that's paid to have an opinion. What we've done, I am the chair of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party, and something that we've done starting this year that we've never done in the past is we have a legislative programs group, and they are literally working with state legislators, a couple of good Democratic state legislators. They're in the minority, but they know about what the issues are that are coming up and the bills and the legislation that's coming up, and they also know who's vulnerable, or swayable, I should say, on these bills, whether they're for or against. And so we're working with them, and then once a week our county party puts out talking points and contact information on specific issues and bills, and we're encouraging our members to become citizen activists and citizen lobbyists and reach out to their legislators. So that's another thing. Sometimes the big flashy events, if you can pull them off, they get a lot of attention and stuff, but I think a lot of it is just changing public opinion, because we're up against a really tough opponent, and they're really good at what they do. They've been at it for a long time, and we're playing catch up a lot of times in terms of changing our public opinion and getting our message out and our side of the story out. You're going to see her attempt to put vouchers into schools, is my prediction. She hasn't done that yet successfully in Michigan. We have a constitution that says you can't do that, and they have tried twice. Both her husband and her have both bankrolled two petition or ballot initiatives to do this, and they've been overturned. But I think you're going to see this happen in broadly across the country. And I also think that you're going to see an effort to divert more of our tax dollars into private schools and to religious schools, because they're dominionists and they believe that the schools are a place to teach their version of Christianity, and they would like to see those Christian schools be funded with our tax dollars. So it's one of the last places where the corporate America hasn't really been able to get their claws into our tax dollars, and so you're going to see that. In my prediction is that you'll see that being rolled out in some form or another in the next 4 years.